Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. You're welcome to today's webinar. So thank you for joining us. It promises to be an enlightening and impactful session. I would like to start by saying Happy International Women's Day to everyone. If you're watching this webinar today, then you're already on the right track. It just means that you are clearly trying to educate yourself on what International Women's Day is all about. Today, I, along with three amazing colleagues of mine who are breaking barriers set for women in technology, will be discussing the UN International Women's Day 2023 theme, which is digital innovation and technology for gender equality. So the UN's theme this year underscores how the fight for gender equality has evolved in the 21st century. The topic highlights how technology is crucial to advancing rights and how a growing and troubling digital gender gap is impacting everything from employment opportunities for women to their safety online. In discussing the theme, the UN stated that bringing women into technology results in more creative solutions and has greater potential for innovations that meet women's needs and promotes gender equality. It also says that their lack of inclusion, by contrast, comes with massive costs. Now, that just gives us a background into what this year's theme for International Women's Day is all about. I'm going to be asking our panelists a few questions. This is to help enlighten us all, for them to shed more light, and just an interactive session. Anybody that has questions, please put your questions down in the comment box. We will take it after the session. Okay, so to start off, I will start with TFS. Okay, let's start with TFS. TFS, what does gender inequality mean to you?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be on this webinar. And I want to thank you, Mojeri, especially for that question. And the first question that I have been asked is, what does gender inequality mean to me? Obviously, inequality, and I should apologize, the light went off in my office. It's going to come back on. I do appear to be in the dark. Yeah, thank you. So gender inequality essentially talks about the fact that women do not have the same opportunities as men. Women do not occupy the same share of positions as men. Women do not enjoy the same benefits as men. There is pay inequality. There is gender discrimination in choices and selections for positions. Let me give you a few statistics. Only 4 countries in the world have 50% or more of women in parliaments. We all know, for example, that women constitute at least 50% of the population of the world. However, in the entire world, only 4 countries, specifically Rwanda, Cuba, Bolivia, and United Arab Emirates, have up to 50% of women in their parliaments. Only 21% of government ministers are women, with only 14 countries having achieved 50% or more of women in their cabinets. 61% of countries in the world have never had a woman as their leader in their entire history. That is what gender inequality means to me. And let me quickly round up by saying, in the corporate world, 4.6%, only 4.6%, 23 of Fortune Global 500 organizations have female CEOs. So the wide disparity between the status, the fortunes, the income, the opportunities, and the treatment of women by society and men represents inequality. That is gender inequality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, TFS. Thank you so much. Okay, So I'm going to move on to Tony. So Tony, I would like you to shed a bit more light on the difference between gender equity, gender equality, and women's empowerment.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mojay. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. So my name is Tony Sani, as Mojay has introduced, and I currently head the Corporate Finance and Venture Capital Division here within the Emerging Africa Group. So to me, I would say the key difference between those three terms, that's gender equality, gender equity, and women's empowerment, is that, gender equality really just addresses that women and men should be made to be equal, essentially. So should be given equal opportunities and equal rights and, equal access to fairness in every aspect of, day-to-day life. Whereas equity takes it a step further. So whereas equality doesn't necessarily work to correct, the history of gender parity that has already existed. So unfortunately, because in the past, there wasn't the access to equal rights and equal opportunities. For example, women not being allowed to vote for so long and, not having access to education in equal capacities. There's already been a discrepancy or a difference that has already, a gap that has already been created. The parity has already been created. And so just giving them now today equal opportunities doesn't necessarily bridge that gap. Again, because they still have a further, place to go, a further way to go. So equity takes it a step further by then saying that let's also work to address and correct the history of, divide that has already existed and the influences and consequences of those divides. So for example, if we were supposed to have opportunities for employment, for men and women, let's say in technology or in engineering, because there's been a history of lack of proper awareness to men and women on the opportunities and roles that exist within engineering. And let's say the education gap, that also exists has already made so that there are more men in that field than women. So even if today you were to give, equal opportunities in the sense that you're saying, well, my company is, employs, both men and women on fair and equal grounds, you might find that you still have majority of your applicants that come in for that particular role are still men. And so even though you were giving out a fair opportunity, an equal opportunity, because you haven't addressed that gender equity, you still have that issue of having more male dominance in that particular workforce. So equity would be to say, okay, let's go down the pipeline and let's, look at women in school, women in STEM, the women in STEM degrees, and let's try to create more awareness on the opportunities that exist for them. Let's even go further. Let's go to secondary schools and primary schools before they even start going in that line of education, of that line of work. Let's try to provide awareness so we can encourage more women to come into this pipeline, and your pipeline then grows. And then in the future, even when you have these equal opportunities, you both have men and women in those fields. And finally, I would say women's empowerment, deals more with the mental, psychological, emotional areas, as opposed to just the physical. So, it's giving them that belief and that confidence, changing the belief system that women aren't necessarily able to do certain things that men can do, or aren't necessarily able to access certain opportunities that men can access. So taking that, promoting self-awareness and awareness and empowerment conversations, discussions, opportunities. And then also, there are also physical aspects of it as well. So providing them with, money, financing, education, so that they are empowered to then, live independently, to whatever situation is hindering them from, achieving their full potential. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tony. I think I particularly liked how you touched on, even from primary school, secondary schools, how important it is to start the education there, and how it's not just, it covers all aspects of life, not just work, but like everything in life. So thank you so much. Okay, so I would like to go back to TFS, right? TFS, I would say, how would you say innovation and technology impacts the society?
Thank you, Mojoy. And let me seize the opportunity to wish everybody on this call, everybody who's attending this webinar, and of course, my co-panelists, a very happy International Women's Day. I think each and every one of us that are women deserve to celebrate ourselves. The men in our lives deserve to be celebrated for allowing themselves to enjoy the benefit of having us in their lives in whatever capacity or role that we play. And to the specific question about how I believe that technology and innovation impact society. Let me start by saying that the contributions of innovation and technology to society are massive. They're huge. They're all pervasive, and they cut across all segments of society. Now, let me start with connection. We have over 8 billion people in the world. Traditionally, to connect with the people across the world, either for social purposes or for business purposes, or for the purpose of sharing ideology and messages of faith, of convictions, would be totally impossible, but for technology. But because of innovation and technology today, barriers are crashing across the world. A little boy in Nigeria can have a friend in Cambodia. They can communicate in real time. They can co-create in real time. They can share experiences in real time. A little girl in Nigeria can have a little friend, a young friend in China, and together they can discuss the challenges that they face in school and in life, and they can find solutions to these challenges. So first of all is connectivity and bringing down barriers between human beings. So human connection is very important. We need to understand that as human beings, we crave connection. And technology and innovation, specifically digital technology, has solved this problem for us and given us an opportunity to be seen and to be heard across nations, across geographies, across also social levels and traditional social restrictions and barriers, across normally in terms of wealth levels, income levels. So that's the first one. The second one is disintermediation. Traditionally, users of products and services have been removed from the providers and suppliers of these products and services, and have had to pay huge costs of intermediation because they had to go through middlemen and middlewomen. And you can see what has happened, for example, in the areas, for example, of transportation with what the Ubers of this world have done, the Ubers and the Lyfts of this world have done to transportation. You can see what has happened in terms of accommodation, travel accommodation, and what has happened with Airbnb. Prior to now, to get a room and a bed, to sleep in any country, I would have to go to the hotel chains, and I was restricted. And obviously, I would have to bear a lot of significant costs of management and overheads. But today, you can travel to any country in the world, and you can, through technology, connect with the owner or the of a flat or a room who is willing to take you in, and you settle your transactions via Airbnb, and you have disintermediated. The financial technology providers like FinTech, like Fondol, that Abimbola works for, have been able to bring that level of disintermediation also into the finance space, increasing access to critical products and services, improving quality of products, speed and accuracy, and reducing the cost of accessing these products. And very importantly also, improving the quality of the products. What else is the value of technology and innovation? Wealth creation is very important. Tremendous wealth is being created every day via technology and innovation. And you need to remember that this has an impact on inclusiveness because we have youth, we have women, we have people that traditionally have been excluded from the economic cycles simply because they didn't have, they were not born with a silver spoon, they didn't have any capital with which they could fund businesses. Many of them did not have formal education. Many of them did not have the normal connections in society. Via technology, these people are creating apps, these people are providing services, and they are growing. So wealth creation and inclusiveness is one of the big values of technology and innovation. I would say also that innovation and technology is creating solutions to the pressing problems of society. It's the sheer wealth that has been created by providing these solutions has also inspired and encouraged more people to come into this space. So for me, it offers leverage. It gives you an opportunity to operate at levels. Pardon me again, I seem to have a power outage. It will come back, but I think you can hear me. So it gives you leverage, essentially to stand on the shoulders of technology and achieve what you thought could not. You would ordinarily not have been able to achieve. Let me stop there and hope that by the time you come back to me, the power situation will have changed. Thank you.
No problem, Theodore. Thank you so much. I think when you were saying that, the image that came to mind is, you know how you have the globe, and then they always say the globe, the world is like one digital space. It just speaks to the connection. It's like everybody interacting, everybody communicating, and just solving problems together. Okay, thank you, Tiadas. Yes, so I would like to come over to you. So my question for you is, do you think it is important for women to be represented in STEM education, positions, and careers, and why?
Thank you very much, Mudri. And I must say, happy International Women's Day again to everybody. And yes, TFS, like you mentioned, it is important for us to celebrate ourselves. So I celebrate all the women on this panel. I celebrate our participants and women all across the world. It's good to see everybody looking bright and chirpy today. So yes, Mudri, like you mentioned, definitely it is very important to have female representation in STEM, right? So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? And they're very specific skill sets, specific knowledge, perspectives, and ideas that women usually bring to the table. And this is not just in terms of STEM roles, right? But generally in all spheres, and we can see it across industries, organizations, and, companies all around the world, right? So beyond this, we cannot overemphasize the benefits that, having the diversity, the gender equality, that forward-thinking organizations already, and I can't say that Fondol, and of course the Emerging Africa Group is doing that, right, have made towards the commitment to ensure that we have inclusive and diverse hiring practices, right? And, general employment practices, because these are very key to having that representation, right? So that said, I must mention that, engineering companies, tech companies, who are actually committed to looking to close these long-standing gender gaps that we have in STEM, they're facing some challenges and some difficulties, right, due to the underrepresentation that we have in STEM. And this goes through from even educational degrees, also getting the right trainings, and this in itself would have an impact on the talent pool that you need. So on one hand, we're saying that it's very important for us to have representation. We're saying it's important to recognize the unique skill sets and the knowledge, and the perspective that women are bringing to the table. And on the other side, we do have the obvious limitations of having that representation, because also there's limitations in terms of training and education. I would like to also mention that according to the World Economic Forum, right, we'll still have quite a number of female students and employees that are underrepresented generally. And the fact sheet from UIS, which is the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, generally says that gender parity has still not been achieved. And this is, world over. So globally, you don't have that. Right. So when I go back to the limitations that hiring managers, HR professionals, and of course, business leaders are having, right, we need to have that balance done. Lastly, I'd like to say that the presence of women in STEM is very important. More than half of the population are women. So if you don't have that representation done, you're excluding a significant, pool of people from that. So we need women in STEM. We need them to drive innovation. We need them to drive adoption. We need them not just for the current female population as we see it today, but also as the first line of education. As we know, women are the first line of education, right? And for unborn children and generations yet to come, if you have more women going into STEM, the likely chances that you would have is, and they would then also transfer, that drive, that general change you see in the world would then transfer to, to future generations that we have. So yes, I am, a supporter of having representation improve in the STEM space for women. Thank you.
Thank you so much, AS. Thank you. And just like you said, representation matters. We cannot overemphasize this. Before we go ahead, I'd just like to remind everyone, if you have questions, please drop them in the comment section in the question box, and we'll take them after the session. Okay, TFS, I'm coming back to you. So you have always staunchly promoted the use of innovation and technology in all aspects of our business. What is the drive behind this?
Yes, I confess, or I confirm that I have not only staunchly promoted innovation and technology, the deployment of technology in our businesses across the group. I have championed technology across markets, and especially as a big part of the solution of the problems that Africa is facing. Now, at Emerging Africa Group, I spearheaded the acquisition of Fondol Technology Solutions Limited, our fintech subsidiary, as a vehicle not only to improve the quality of the application of technology within the group, but also to provide these critical services to our clients and generally to individuals and businesses. At the Emerging Africa Group, I have also championed and spearheaded the development of the Emerging Africa Wealth, that's Emerging Wealth, which is our wealth platform, which is being launched later this month, and which I'm very excited about. What are the reasons behind this drive? Number one, we want to serve more people. We have excellent services and solutions that we are able to leverage technology to make available to people in the millions. So where we have served people in the tens of thousands, we now want to begin to serve people in the millions. And it is information communication technology that provides that ability. Secondly, we want to get closer to our clients. And through digital technology, our clients are able to access our services at the push of a button. And they have these services in their hands, in their digital handheld digital devices, and they're able to enjoy these services. So it enables us to come closer to them. We're able to onboard them at the speed of a finger touch. We're able to serve them. They're able to invest in our products, access our products, provide feedback to us, access reports, all via digital technology. Obviously, it also enables us to serve them better. And so the quality, accuracy of our services, our operational efficiency is highly improved by digital technology. Access to finance is something I have been very passionate about. And the truth is that we have people in the rural areas that ordinarily cannot access financial services like the services we provide across the group. Our technology enables them to have this access. It enables us also to become more creative and to innovate quicker and better solutions to our clients at all times. So it is a joy, it's an honor to be able to deploy technology to serve our clients. I remain a champion of this opportunity, and I will do more and in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, TFS. I think all of us on this app are eagerly waiting for the launch of the Emerging Wealth app. I know for myself, I would love to be enrolled on that platform. So, okay, on to the next question. So your story and career journey is interesting. I mean, from accounting to technology, spanning telecommunications, alternate energy, and now fintech as CEO of Wando. We see the transformation that has occurred on the app, the revamp and the relaunch, which are now leading to the growth in new users and increasing awareness for the app. What advice can you give to women who are either just getting into STEM positions or who would like to?
Thank you, Budre. Yes, you can say that again. It is interesting, and it has been interesting. So yes, transitioning from accounting. First of all, you know, accounting has a lot of numbers in it and maths in it, right? And STEM is also, you know, mathematics is there. So I believe really it's very important, you know, if you're transitioning to any role, for you to actually, you know, be ready, right? To be ready to go out of your comfort zone. For me, it really it wasn't so huge because telecoms in itself, right? Technology backed, you know, alternate energy. But yes, the fintech space was different, right? But it was a challenge that I was willing to embrace. I was willing to go outside of my comfort zone. So I say to people, you know, first of all, by yourself, speak to yourself and be sure that you're ready. Now, the second thing is you have to be very intentional about getting the relevant skills. So it's not just about saying, you know, I want to get into this space. I want to make sure that I have, you know, make myself a subject matter expert in this space, but you must make sure that you have the relevant skills, the knowledge and the experience that is required and important for the job. You also cannot undermine the importance of having the right team, right? So having the right team, people that have the right experience, people that have the right skill levels, people that already are able to operate optimally in their own respective fields, right? So if it's a startup, as an example, then you can have some experiences across board where, you know, people can fit multiple roles. But if you're going into a structured organization, that is very important to have structures in place, processes in place, people that are subject matter experts and can carry out their own jobs, you know, on a day-by-day basis. For women particularly, it's very important to ask and seek for support, right? So in that space, it's important for you to ask for mentorship. There are quite a number of women already that are doing great work, you know, across various areas and across various fields. So it's very important for you to seek, you know, support, seek guidance, you know, reach out to other people, you know, to get the support that you need. The importance of joining associations, joining groups, right? Very, very, very important also, because in those groups, you can find opportunity to be able to transfer, you know, ideas, share ideas, get questions, you know, and have people to also, you know, share with you fields that you might not be exposed to. So beyond that space for you as an individual, you have to then think about the team and the functions and the groups that you have, right? How do you then encourage diverse decision-making teams? How do you make sure that you have more people that also can bring the balance to the thoughts and the representation that you have within your teams, right? How do you ensure that even the mentoring that you have sought is also going across to other women within the same space that might also be seeking for those opportunities there, right? And like I mentioned, also make sure that the transference of skills and knowledge is important. And as you're doing that, be sure to put in some formalities to that transfer of skills and knowledge. So not just in terms of, you know, making it available and saying to people that you have to, you know, put yourself in spaces to learn, but also formalize it. So people have goals, they have set goals and targets that they have to meet in terms of being able to show what they have learned within a period of time. And we must mention that work-life balance is also important. So as you're trying to acquire all these skills, you're trying to acquire all this knowledge, you're trying to do all that, please do not burn out, right? Because it's very important. For the average person, is overwhelming moving into a new role. Then also when you have to think about, if you're making a big and a huge leap, right, to an area that is previously something that you're not too familiar with or is new to you in terms of a specific skill area, you have to make sure that work-life balance is important so you can also protect and preserve your own mental state also. So that's it, right? Get good support systems, have good team members, allow yourself the opportunity to learn, embrace the opportunities to grow, and then just remember, it is not a destination, it's a journey, and enjoy the journey while you're at it.
Yes, thank you very much. I think some things I've taken from that is everybody has a role to play. So even we already in the industry, team members, both male and female, it's not just left on females trying to get into tech STEM. It's all of us that have a role to play. So thanks, yes, thank you so much for that. I would like to go back to Tony. So Tony, EACG, which you heard, is currently working on launching a tech-focused fund. Can you tell us more about it and why it's so exciting for women?
Thank you very much, Moje. Thank you, everyone. So for EAVC, so that's Emerging Africa Venture Capital, we're actually in the process of launching our technology fund. So that fund is going to focus on technology-aligned businesses across Pan-Africa. So that's across, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and even Francophone West Africa, because those are the markets that we see, significant opportunity that has yet to be addressed. It's incredibly exciting, for all founders and entrepreneurs, because as you know, there's been lots of development with tech businesses or tech-focused businesses across Africa, particularly within the past decade. A lot of interest is coming in from the developed world, particularly here in the developing world, because there's so many significant opportunities, and whereas we're seeing markets being saturated and growth already being saturated in the developed world, there's still so much opportunity and room for growth here. And so investors, are more and more focused on looking here to this part of the world. There's also that interest from them because, there's a strong focus on impact investments as well. So investing in businesses and investing in funds that not only provide economic returns or financial returns, but also provide some social benefits and social returns to the communities within which, the business and investments operate in. It's particularly exciting for women, I would say, because part of this fund is actually going to be dedicated towards female entrepreneurs and female founders across Pan-Africa. So if you know this, so you would know that the DFC, a few years ago came up with proposed the 2X initiative or 2X challenge, which essentially works cross-border to target gender parity across entrepreneurs, across the business world. And so what we are doing is that we are looking at this 2X initiative, this 2X challenge. We're looking at the criteria with which DFC has said that female entrepreneurs and female founders should fall into before being able to access this financing that they are giving out. And we're using that same criteria to gauge the female entrepreneurs and female founders that would fit into our fund. This way, they are able to directly fall within the criteria that investors, that global and foreign investors would be looking for, so that they can then commit, towards investing in them. We already have a very strong pipeline of strong women, strong female-led businesses, not only here in Nigeria, but in different parts, Nigeria, Ghana. We even have some foreign businesses that are looking into working with Nigerian partners and African partners to enter into the African market because they see significant and strong opportunities there. Another, key thing to note is that what we're seeing now is we have Nigerians and Africans who have migrated across the diaspora and are now living in different countries that are now saying, you know what, I want to come back to Nigeria, or I want to invest in Nigeria, or I want to work, build a business in Nigeria. And so some of our businesses in our pipeline are actually owned by founders that have previously emigrated to other countries and are now seeing significant opportunities here and are taking time out to come over here, to come over here and create businesses here within this part of the world that targets the needs that we are seeing within this part of the world. And some of those businesses in our pipeline are actually businesses like that. So it's particularly exciting. It's very interesting. We're always on the lookout for any female founder or female entrepreneur that would like to see what they would need to do to be able to access this funding, access this financing. It looks up from here, only looks up from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. That was very enlightening. Okay, so I've been enlightened from this whole discussion. I hope everybody in the audience has. We have a few questions that have dropped in, so I will just take them one by one and just throw them out to different people to answer. So one of the questions is, in a country like Nigeria, where parents don't really encourage their daughters to get into tech education and roles, how can we motivate young ladies to be interested in tech? Interesting. TFS, please, would you like to answer this question? I can take it again, just since it's the question that we're just sharing now. So in a country like Nigeria, where parents don't really encourage their daughters to get into tech education and roles, how can we motivate young ladies to be interested in tech?
Okay, thank you. Let me start by saying that to some extent, the narrative is changing. We do have parents who are increasingly encouraging their children, their young daughters, to get into tech and STEM. And this is because they are seeing the stories, the success stories of others who have gone in and have succeeded, and they are experiencing the impact of technology. Now, I believe that getting more young girls to go into technology and actually into the study of STEM subjects, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, is a responsibility of everybody. So on the side of the government, recognizing the positive impact of having more girls and more women, more young people in STEM on the potential of our economy, I think there should be grants, there should be more scholarships, there should be greater public enlightenment. Definitely, there should be more spending in terms of safe schools for young girls, especially in parts of Nigeria and Africa, where they will still face opposition due to on the basis of culture and tradition and religion. So government needs to do more. Parents need to do more by way of encouragement and exposure. Teachers need to do more. We need to improve the quality of teachers and the enthusiasm of teachers that we have in our schools teaching the STEM subjects. We think corporate entities like Emerging Africa need to do more. I am very excited about the work of the Tony F. Sonny Foundation, in which we support women and children, in which we provide all kinds of support, to encourage and to keep people in schools. For example, we have disabled children that we every month provide transportation to get them to school. Of course, and this is not discriminatory. It's both girls and boys that we are supporting in that way. So corporate institutions have an opportunity to partner with foundations like TFS Foundation to ensure that we are also putting our money where our mouth and where our future interest lies. I believe also that there is responsibility for civil society organizations to put a lot of passion into creating awareness and encouraging a drive for more inclusive education, for more technology-driven education, for gender equality, and Tony talked about equality, and equality includes elements of affirmative action where you are trying to level the playing field, and not just level the playing field, but you are also trying to erase the inequalities of the past. These are some of the activities and approaches that I think will help to bridge that gap. Thank you.
Thank you so much, TFS. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question I would take, and I think with the questions, I would, if anybody, any of the other panelists want to join in, maybe like, so not just one person, if another panelist wants to give another answer or other comments that they believe goes with the question, it's definitely open. So this question, okay, so this person says, this question is for all the panelists. Have any of you faced gender inequality in your careers or personal lives? And please share your experience with us. So it's like two questions. The first is, have any of you faced gender inequality in your careers or personal lives? And please share your experience with us. So I'm going to throw that open. Does anybody want to go first? Tony, you're muted.
Sorry. Oh, apologies. I said that I can give my answer on that, and anyone else that wants to speak on that, because I'm sure that, you know, in some way or form, every woman has faced some form of inequality as a result of our gender. I guess in my career, because it's a male-dominated, I mean, up till very recent, and even now, you know, with corporate finance, investment banking, private equity, venture capital, it's still male-dominated, as is tech. You know, the finance industry, you know, there's that joke of the men in black suits. It's always been, you know, particularly with regards to the men in within the senior roles and senior positions, we particularly had men there coming. But what I would say is that it's getting better. There's active tasks are being taken, and active deliberate action is being taken. As Tia said, that sometimes in terms of affirmative action, but in terms of actually including and improving that pipeline of having women not just be junior staff, as we've seen in the past, junior or middle staff, but actually go into those roles of management and actually have women come up those roles of management. There's active action, deliberate action has been taken now so more than ever. I would say in terms of my experience, yes, of course, especially when I first started, you know, my career within the private equity industry. I remember very well as a graduate trainee, you know, coming into a team of just all men. Both past places I worked at, actually, I was the first female analyst on the team. I would say the men were very, very accommodating, though they were very welcoming. And I'm sure they even felt, you could tell that air of refreshment that finally, oh, we have a girl on our team, we have a girl on our team. But again, you know, it was quite daunting at first because you sort of tend to, as a woman already, you kind of hide in your shell a little bit. You speak up less in meetings or in group meetings. You kind of just want to get your work done and just, you know, close the day and just not really cause too much of a fuss or set the status quo. So I think one experience I had was I had a previous colleague say something, I can't really remember, but something towards the line that I was a diversity hire, quote unquote, you know, to make the team look more diverse. And I remember this very well. And it's, you know, it struck me. And, you know, like you say, when you come in, I was new, so I didn't really, you know, want to upset the status quo, but I made a point in my mind that, you know, I don't necessarily need to prove myself to anyone. I'll let my work speak for itself. And lo and behold, my work did speak for itself. And, you know, I ended up actually being promoted ahead of that person. And even up till now, you know, it's something that I think, again, some people don't necessarily do these things maliciously, but it's just the subconscious mental beliefs that they already have. So even now, the person and I are actually friends, friends, quote unquote. And, when we see each other, when we run into each other, we greet each other, we hug each other. And I know that I earned that person's respect, because by the time the person was seeing my results and seeing the praise I was getting, the person actually stepped up their work, because again, you don't want this person to outshine you. And I know that I gained that person's respect. But I will say that going back to that time, I do wish I had spoken up for myself in the moment. I've spoken about this before, actually, with one of my mentors, and I do wish I had spoken up for myself. The reason I'm telling this story is that, yes, let your work speak for yourself, speak for itself. Don't always feel the need to prove yourself. Let your work speak towards your work, but sometimes don't let certain stereotypes be established. You can also defend yourself or speak up for yourself, not necessarily in an aggravated manner, but speak up for yourself. Don't feel afraid to take up space. Again, speak up during meetings, speak up during tasks, and let your presence be felt and be known. And that's my advice to any young woman that might be watching this and that is in a similar position. Maybe you're not that many females in your line of work, or you're young, or you're just starting out really in your career. That's my advice to you. So let your work also do the talking, and then also feel free to take up space and let your presence be felt, and don't cower or be intimidated by any other person, whether man or even woman, in the room. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tony. Oh my gosh, I can't believe the person actually opened their mouth and said you were a diversity hire. But good job for showing him what it actually was. Well done. I know I've seen both TFS's hand and ES's hand up while you were speaking. So TFS, would you go ahead, and then ES can go ahead after you.
It's interesting because I was actually trying to clap for Tony, and then somehow it turned into a raised hand. But what I will say is, and Tony, I hear you, and I hear you loud and clear. And there are two things that you said that I want to identify with. The first one is that there is no woman in the workspace that would not at one time or the other have had this experience. We've all been through it. All generations of women. It gets better, and I can assure you that those of you that are, in the next generation, it's much easier for you. I can assure you, it was much tougher in our own times. So having somebody say to your face that you're a diversity hire is probably, I mean, it's outrageous. But I can tell you that it's still much nicer than some of the things we experienced. So there were some of us that essentially were told that we didn't belong, and were told that we should be, at home, producing babies. There were some of us that were told that, I can marry you. What are you doing here? Are you here because you've not found a man to marry you and put you in where you really belong? And I've told you before, I've had situations where, and I've narrated this story before, where I was at a public gathering and I asked a question that I thought was an apt question of no less a person than the president of our country at that time. And I had the president say, when I asked, because what happened at that event was that all kinds of, the president had made his presentation, the ministers that were around him were there to help him respond to questions. And then they asked for questions, and they took a few questions from men, and then they came out and said, isn't there a woman here? They were trying to do the, politically correct thing. Let's take a comment from a woman. So isn't there a woman here that has a question? Of course, I'd been raring to go. And of course, I put my hand up and I asked the question. And then the president goes, when I asked if a woman had a question, I was looking for a feminine question. Because I asked him a technical question. He needed his ministers, some of his ministers, to rescue him and help him answer. And he essentially admitted to the hall full of people that he assumed that all the women in that group were going to get up and say things like, Mr. President, how are you going to, what are you going to do to make, the women, I don't know what he thought, but he obviously was not expecting a question I would ask him. So he openly admitted that he was expecting a feminine question. So we've been in spaces where we are assumed to have a feminine brain. We're assumed to come up with feminine questions. And the assumption is that our contributions would also be feminine. And by feminine, I mean lightweight. I mean, not particularly impressive, not particularly challenging, and essentially just representing tokenism. And our role is always to, like you did, Tony, is to give them a run for their money and bring them to the position where at the end of the day, they realize the errors of their ways. In the workspace, I've had to wait for an unconscionable time for a position that I clearly was qualified for and I merited, because I think I was not regarded as the best man for the job. Eventually, I did get the opportunity, and by the grace of God, I was able to eclipse the records of all the men that had occupied that same position before me. And that's really how we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, TFS. Yes, your hand is also up. Please go ahead.
Yes. So what TFS mentioned is, I believe that there will be probably no woman that would say she hasn't experienced that, within the works.
Oh, I think BIM is, am I the one that can't hear BIM?
We can't hear her either. It's not just.
I think the connectivity, because even I had to turn off my video because it was going off. It's going on and off.
Okay, but I am fine. Motoring is fine. So maybe, Tony, you can turn on your video back. Okay. Yeah. So I think Jim is going to go in and come out again. Yeah. If you want to take another question, it's fine.
Yeah. So let me just take another question, and when Bean comes back, we can go back to her. Thank you. So this question is, I work for a tech company and I'm a man. What I have found is that most times the men in my company are better at technical tasks and problem solving. Is this wrong for me to say that men are better at tech roles than women? Tony, do you want to take this question? Let me read it one more time for everyone. Anybody that wants to comment after, please feel free. But the question is, I work for a tech company and I'm a man. What I have found is that most times the men in my company are better at technical tasks and problem solving. Is this wrong for me to say that men are better at tech roles than women?
So I think there's two angles to that question. So first and foremost, I'm a realist, at least when it comes to the workplace. So if somebody is better at something than another staff member, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that this particular staff member is best suited to handle this task, or better suited to handle this. There's nothing wrong with that, especially when you want to improve efficiency and you need things done quickly. So if you've noticed that certain staff that are men are better at these particular tasks, technical tasks, as you say, than women, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that and giving them more work. But what I would say is the other angle is that you don't then take it on as a status quo, that the men are then better at this than the women, and then don't look inwards to say, how can we address this issue? Yes, the men are more technical. Is it that they have better training than the women? Do these women or this particular staff need to be trained more? Do they need certain levels of training to bring them up to speed to this, level of skill? Don't then take it as the norm and how it's always going to be. So which is why I would say, it's wrong. It's not wrong to share tasks based on strengths and weaknesses. That's not wrong. But what is wrong is to now take it on as the norm and not do anything about it and say, okay, the men are just better than the women. because you yourself are actually reducing your efficiency, because you might end up in a situation where you have a bottleneck. You know, there are certain technical tasks that need to be done, and the particular men that you're talking about are all occupied, and you only have women that are not doing anything. So what I would say is, if you notice that they are better, then try to train the other women, which is another thing we're talking about with equity. So with equity, we're not saying that, you know, men and women are equal up to par in certain regards, because like I said, there's a history of, you know, disparity that has already happened and has given some of the men an advantage. We're saying that how can we raise these women up so that they are actually now equally as skilled as the men in this particular regard, and that way, you know, your business and society at large is much more efficient, you know, so we now have two people doing the work as opposed to just one person. So that's what I would say. It's not wrong to share your tasks accordingly, but it is wrong to take it as the status quo, as the norm, and not do anything about it to change it or fix it. So that would be my advice to you. And, you know, so I would say, you know, offer trainings, offer help, even if the men have to teach the women, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong in sharing knowledge. What would be wrong is if A, you don't do anything about it, or B, the women are not willing or ready to learn or improve their skills or their training. That would also be, you know, equally as bad. And then in that case, you should find women or staff that are willing to improve their skills. Thank you.
Tony, I think that is brilliant. And I can weigh in and say that in point of fact, there are no scientific reasons to believe that women will be not as good as men with technical things or in problem solving. But definitely, historically, perhaps more women have been discriminated against. They have been discriminated because fewer women have had, you know, training in STEM and some of these analytical disciplines. So when you make these kind of observations, the solution really is to then resolve the problem by leveling the playing field, by providing the training and the exposure for the women. And you have to think of the future of your organization. So you have to think of having a steady pipeline of people with these skills that you regard as important, and ensuring that you give your organization the best opportunities for the future by training and exposing your men and women alike. Remember that women on the average make up at least 50% of the workforce. So if you just assume that these women are not good at this, you have already limited, you know, the chances, you know, of filling those roles for your organization by 50%. And it's important to note also that it was the president of the Africa Development Bank, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina, who said that no aeroplane can fly on just one wing. And you need to understand that your organization cannot fly on one wing. There are one or two questions still on the Q&A platform. One of them I've indicated that I'm willing to answer, from Amwen Willie through Dr. Ndege, ING Ndege. I think there's a third question as well. So Mojoyin, I see you're back.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let me take the question, and the first question, just the one that indicated. So this question is, just like you said, Amwen Willie through Dr. Ndege. I celebrate women, especially on this day, but I feel it is not sufficient for women just to be celebrated. I am of the opinion that women, especially the African women, should take the representation of owning responsibility by taking leadership, especially in STEM, education, and technology. And I mean leading from in front in giving the direction of applied STEM, leading in manufacturing, energy, production, engineering. What's your take on this? Hi, Tiafas.
Oh, yes, sure. Thank you for sharing the question. And Dr. Ndege, that's a fantastic question. What I will say to you is that I'm aligned with you completely. I think we need to walk our talk. I like the example that Tony gave earlier, in which, you know, she was challenged and she decided to prove with her work that she was as good and even better. I know that she studied mathematics, further mathematics. She made a first class in accounting and finance. These are typically spaces that have been dominated by men. So I totally agree with you that women should take the responsibility of leading from the front in the areas of STEM, education and technology. And I mean, you said you mean leading from the front by giving direction of applied STEM in manufacturing, energy production, engineering. My take is absolutely 100%. Do we need women in these spaces? Absolutely. Are there women who have thrived in these fields? Absolutely. We probably need to project the image of these women who have thrived in these fields more, so that they become an inspiration to women coming down the line, that if this lady can do it, I can also do it. I also think that those of us who are in that space and have achieved in male-dominated fields should do more of mentoring and coaching to inspire and encourage a pipeline of more women coming in this space. I believe that the women who have made accomplishments should also tell their success stories and invest in more branding. Abimbola, for example, who is CEO of a technology company, is very clear inspiration to many women coming down the road. I know she also has a first class in accounting. So we should do more. We should invest in manufacturing, energy production and engineering, and all spaces where we have opportunity and we have capability to invest. And I think that funds like the Venture Capital Fund that Tony is sponsoring, the technology fund that Tony is working on, is also with a dedicated bucket of at least 20% of the fund for women-owned and women-led businesses in technology, is a veritable opportunity for us to put our money where our mouth is. Thank you. Mojoy? I don't know if other people.
Yes. Back now. Okay. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you.
Okay. So yes, my network threw me out, but I'm back. So I would proceed to the next question. Okay. In both TFS's and Tony's stories, they both made instances where, when brought into a male-dominated space, they surpassed expectations and brought value to the table. As much as that is great, and we should all strive to attain greatness, but we need to point at the problem that women usually have to do 3 times the work and effort in order to even be considered for a seat at the table. While there are very average men at that table, how can this norm be corrected? Yes, I know you're back with us. Would you like to take this particular question?
Yes, thank you. My network threw me out. Confirm you can hear me, although I can't turn on my video.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, so that is absolutely right and is correct. So women typically have to, most times go over and beyond to prove themselves. Just to say, I'm not, comparing men or pitching men and women against each other. It's just the reality. So sometimes you will find situations where, a lady and a gentleman can be working and achieving the same, at the same level. But most times the woman would have to, continue to prove herself and continue to try to make a point, right? But are there real situations where women are not given the opportunity or women have to do more? Yes. There's the additional layer of women having other things that they have to, that they are providing support in other areas. So you typically have women that perhaps they are, caregivers at home. They're also the one that are taking, care of so many other things, societies, associations, and all that. And they will still have to deliver, on the job. And in most cases, you can see, as with most high-flying women, they're able to combine those other responsibilities and those other roles that they feel the shoes that they have to fill, and also still carry out their jobs and do them very well. Now, that said, I have to also mention that it is important for women also to be able to be comfortable and confident about the benefits that they bring to the table, right? In doing that, you also are able to show people that you are able to deliver on the job. It has nothing to do with it being handed over to you on a platter of gold. You have earned your place at the table. And when you have done that over time, it will then help to correct the anomalies, that might be there. And we can take it one organization and one person at a time. Remember, the win for one woman is a win for a lot more people, right? So be the picture, be the representation of that success that we're trying to, to put out there. But by all means, right, where there are situations where we believe women are not being, assessed equally with men, let's not take it as a position of, we have to then, fight extra, go back and sulk, or, then become a bit aggressive. Just be very intentional about making sure that your work continues to speak for you, and you're also providing the opportunity for people that are coming after you to be able to get into a better situation and experience life a bit differently. Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
I can on that question, if you like.
Yes.
Just to say that I agree with everything Abimbola has said. And my view is that in addition to, recognizing that these inequalities exist, and that we do have to work 2-3 times as hard as the men to get the opportunities, we also have to recognize that when we do get to those positions, it becomes an opportunity for us to work assiduously as the women who have crossed the ladder or crossed the bridge to remove some of these institutional barriers that are stopping the next generation and the next generation of women. I also think that we should consciously, as women, seek to get into positions where we develop policies, where we implement policies, and where we take decisions that make the journey smoother for other women, so that our daughters, our nieces, our younger generation of colleagues will not face the same hurdles that we have faced. Sometimes, unfortunately, you find women actually perpetuating the same obstacle causes that we have gone through and taking it almost as a rite of passage that you think the next generation of women must go through. That's the worst thing that a woman can do. And that's the one thing all of us have to determine that we will not do. That no woman will see us as a symbol of what we went through to get to where we are. On the contrary, and I personally can testify in my career that I have had older senior women who have extended a right hand of fellowship and helped to pull me up and accelerated my growth to the top. So I have a personal commitment to pay it forward. And I know that there is no woman, just like we said earlier, that there's no woman who has not experienced some form of discrimination or the other. I'm sure we can also say that there's no woman who has not been helped up by one woman or the other. So we owe it as a debt to also provide the same opportunities for the next set of women coming up. And we must be champions of one another. We must mentor, we must coach, we must support each other. And very importantly, we must belong to gatherings and bodies and networks where we can encourage one another. And over time, we will overcome the institutional and systemic barriers that the person that asked the question, I think Mrs. Agbola, that was talking about. Thank you.
Yes, Agbolade.
Yeah, Agbolade.
Okay. Thank you, TFS. Thank you so much. Thank you, AS. We have, okay, so Dr. Ndenge has put another comment. He said, thanks a lot for your answer, TFS. To us, okay, to us getting women in applied STEM. Let's work together at getting it done practically. And yes, girls need role models and the industrial and societal mindset has to evolve. Many African men in the Western world who have made it to the top level have had the same sort of discrimination the women are now experiencing, and women can also profit from their experience. Thank you so much, Dr. Ndege.
I would like to say something about that. And I'm so happy, Dr. Ndege, thanks for coming back to us, because it actually reminded me of something I wanted to mention. We said at the beginning that there is no woman around this table. And I'm actually, Mojoy, I hope you will permit me to kind of pose a question to my fellow panelists. So we said at the beginning that there's no woman. And by the way, if any other participating woman wants to answer this or put something in the chat box, I welcome it. We said that there is no woman who has not experienced discrimination in one form or the other on account of her gender in the course of her career. But I want to challenge us also that there is no woman on this panel and around, perhaps, around this room or on this webinar who has not been sponsored, supported, encouraged, promoted, or helped up by a man at one time or the other in their career. Because the narrative has to be balanced. And if, it becomes an us versus them, or every time we talk about this, we talk as if the men are the enemies, they're discriminating, they're pushing us back, we will not make progress because, as Dr. Ndege has said, they have also been through some of these barriers. They have overcome it. They're at the top now. We obviously have more men at the top. In most of these fields, it ranges from 95.6%, or 95.4%, as with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, to maybe 80% in some spaces and maybe 60% in some spaces. So we have men in the majority. They're there already. How do we bring them in as partners to help us climb to the top as well? Because they are partners as well. Some of us have benefited from them. Some of us, yes, have also been, discriminated against by men, but the narrative has to be balanced. So I just wondered, anybody in this panel, can you speak to that as well?
Tifas, you're absolutely right and correct. So I have enjoyed the benefit of working with some of the most amazing men through my career. I've enjoyed having them as sponsors. All the men, almost all the men, I have to say that because there's one exception. Almost all the men that I've worked with in my past have also been people that we've continued to remain very close associates and friends, and they have also recommended me for various other positions and opportunities, right? And I have to say that there's a balance, because also it's about the ability to prove and deliver on the job, right? Because some of these people, that you have met in the professional space before, these are people that can recommend you and go over and beyond. So fantastic to have that balance and to say that, which is why I also mentioned earlier that as women, we must not take the mindset of it being women versus men, is that we're trying to create more opportunities for women. We're trying to create an inclusive environment for women. We're trying to make sure that we are striking the balance between the requirements and the additional things women have to do, right? But at the same time, we're recognizing that the workspace in itself, must be balanced and must be, you must have men and women. Women cannot do it all alone, and they cannot achieve all the success by themselves, right? So it's very, very important. And I must say, I have enjoyed, working with some of the most fantastic men through my career.
Thank you, AS. Thank you, TFS. Thank you, AS, for pointing that out. Again, it's not us against them. We're all working together to achieve these goals. So just two more questions that we have before we call it a day. I'll take the first one that says, I'm a team lead in my company and also the only woman working in my team. We currently have a job opening. I ask that we only review female CVs so that we can balance out the inequality in the team. But my teammates got upset and called me sexist. Am I in the wrong? Yes, would you like to take this question?
As you were reading the question, I was just saying error. So Tony's presentation earlier about equality, and all that, please, let's be a bit mindful. So it's not about the gender, it's the skills, the abilities, the capabilities, Because remember, as business leaders, also, you know, the organization needs to deliver on its set goals. So while we're saying that it's important for us to provide a seat, you know, provide and invite women to come to the table, we have to be sure also that you're not sacrificing the achievement of the organizational goals on that. You know, at Fondo, we have fantastic women, great women in technology, but I can say to you that it is because they have the skills, you know, to deliver on those jobs. These are people that can hold their own anywhere, right? Yes, you, as we're saying with STEM, you have to, you know, have the opportunity when we're doing presentations, we're going to empower the people, we're being the face for other upcoming ladies and young ladies, but it is not on the organization's payroll or at the expense of the organization delivering on its own goals, right, and its own plans. So recruit for the skills, right? Ensure you have people that have the right skills, the right knowledge, the right abilities, right? But at the same time, continue to find opportunities where you can then groom other women, prepare them, and then once they're prepared and they can deliver on the jobs, then of course, you know, opportunities where you can recommend, opportunities where you can sponsor, opportunities where you can speak up for someone, please take on those opportunities, but not at the expense of delivering on organizational values and goals.
Yeah, yes, and if I may add, and by the way, I am 100% aligned with Abimbola. Under no circumstance must you compromise capability. The way you adjust for those kind of imbalances is to now say that we had a maxim in law that says where the equities are equal, the first in line will prevail. Now, if you have an existing problem in which you want to balance, you want to achieve diversity in the organization, you have a diversity goal to fulfill. Now you then find that where the equities are equal, and you have two candidates that, you know, are equally qualified and will be good for the job. Meanwhile, you have a diversity gap that you are filling. Then it is okay to prioritize the hire of the woman or of the gender that you want to use to achieve that diversity. Organizations also set very specific, and this is an opportunity to say that Emerging Africa Capital has signed up to the Gender Diversity Charter of the Africa CEO Forum, Women Working for Change. And one of the things in the gender charter, one of the objectives, of course, is to achieve equality, not just of pay, but also diversity in terms of the proportion of men and women in the organization. Now, I recommend that every forward-looking and forward-thinking organization should have a diversity goal and targets objective. And so as you have that diversity goal and target and you set about filling it, you must under no circumstance compromise the organization's own standards and competency requirements. So you find a way to balance both, but shutting the door completely against the male gender will be a tough one. Thank you.
If I may
Thank
also
you,
just
TFS.
chime,
Okay. Tony, please go ahead.
if I may also just chime in, so I completely agree with, you know, TFS and AS's points. And what I would just add is, you know, as opposed to shutting the door, like I mentioned before when I talked about gender equality and gender equity, I think that what organizations need to do is, you know, so to answer that question, you alone cannot be the one to make that decision call. So what you can do is have a group-wide or an organization-wide session where you can then actively discuss, you know, how you can better improve that pipeline. Like I keep mentioning the pipeline, so that you have access to better skilled, more skilled applicants that are both male and female, and the applicants that can vie equally for the position. So you can look into, okay, should we go to schools? Should we create a system? Where I was working before, we actually created a system where, okay, this particular program is a program for interns or a program for secondary school graduates or a program for ITs, students in university that are trying to do 1 year of their IT. What you can do is that make that program now for women. So you already have now within that program, you have a pipeline of female future applicants that can come in. So you're already watching them, you're already training them, you're already teaching them, you're already growing that pipeline, right? And so in the future, when you then have an opening, you can then invite, previous applicants from that and previous candidates from that program that they've already gone through to come and apply for the role. You can even do it so that you have the top, the top performers from that program automatically get an interview, automatically get it, get to the second level interview or third level interview stage within your organization, which is what a lot of investment banking groups are actually doing now, the larger ones. And so that way you've curated a pipeline that already has women, strong and skilled women that you've even trained yourself. And so you see the strengths of them. And then that way, those women can then equally be equally footed with the other male applicants that are also coming in and can vie for that position. And then it's not necessarily, it becomes harder for anyone to challenge these applicants that are coming in because they're also applying for the job same as a man. But like you said, you've improved your pipeline because we've taken an active decision to make things more equitable. And that way, it's not necessarily shutting the door, like TFS said, on one particular gender, which can cause a lot of disagreements within the company and the chaos. And it's not, it's not a decision that, because it's not a decision that one person can take. Like I said, it's not a decision that you alone would have the power to close out on. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Tony. Thank you so much, TFS. Thanks, yes. Okay. On to the next question. This person says, I am looking to get into the tech world, but I don't know where to start from. I am already a graduate and I cannot afford to go back to school. Where do I start? Tony, do you have any pointers? Again, anybody that has any pointers can go ahead. Well, I can read the question one more time. And the person says, I am looking to get into the tech world, or I don't know where to start from. I am already a graduate and I cannot afford to go back to school. Where do I start?
Yes, do you want to take that one?
Okay. So,
could you take it again?
One more
time. The question again?
Okay. The person says, I am looking to get into the tech world, but I don't know where to start from. I am already a graduate and I cannot afford to go back to school. Where do I start?
Okay, so I know you said you wanted to you could take it also. Yes, so go ahead.
So internships is one of the ways that you can get free knowledge, for lack of a better term, because then you're working with organizations, you're like, train me, I'm here, I'm willing to learn. So internships are a really good avenue, especially since you said you're a graduate. So you don't necessarily have, maybe you're a recent graduate, I don't know, but internships. Another thing is online learning. So there are lots of materials online. There, you can do your research. Again, I'm sure there are, the same way for each industry, they have niches and all of that. You can go online, do some courses, get some certificates. So you have the technical know-how, and then you can also get the experience from internship. So that way you kind of build yourself. And then when you apply for jobs, again, it could be entry-level jobs in the tech industry, but then you have that basic knowledge and understanding. So that is a good place to start from. Yes, I would now hand it over to you for any other thing.
Well said, Marjorie. The other thing, just one point to add to it, is also to be sure of which space, what exactly, because tech is broad, right? So you have to also do some, homework and do some research. Which area of tech are you really interested in? And then when you find out where it is in tech, also what kind of roles, do you want to do? There's some roles that are, like stepping stones. Right. So for instance, within the tech space, even if you're not an engineer, you're not a back-end developer, for instance, you can do codes. You might be able to start with to understand the organization and understand the space. If it's in a fintech space, maybe you want to start as a product owner, you want to start as someone that is in operations, general operations, and from there you'll be exposed to the various arms, and then from there you can begin to play around with codes yourself. Like Mojorin said, check online, find courses, find programs. And then once you've done all that, then you can begin to identify which areas are the real areas of interest. And then you can then target those areas to get more skills, more experience, understudy people. And then from that space, you can then begin to apply for relevant roles. But it's a learning period is required. you have to allow yourself to go through the learning space.
Thank you, AS. Thanks for that. I think we've exhausted all the questions that have come in. Does anybody have any comments before we close out on the session? TFS AS Tuni, any comments, any last words before we bring today to a close?
So my last words are that technology can give you a leap forward. As an organization, you can use it to leapfrog. You can use it to grow rapidly and accelerate. As an individual, you can deploy technology to stand tall. So I love today's theme, which is digital. And embracing technology can be as simple as using, the digital technology media available to use, social media, blogging. I have found LinkedIn, for example, to be extremely beneficial in terms of growing my profile. And so embracing technology for all of us around this room may just be a simple decision that after today, I'm going to go out there and up my game on LinkedIn, up my game on the rest of the social media, begin to deploy digital technology to sell my products. So I just want everybody to have a takeaway, a very simple, achievable, and measurable takeaway from today's conversation, which is what are you going to do differently going forward? How will you deploy technology the more? And how will you also show creativity with the aid of technology in what you do in your everyday life? Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. That's perfectly said. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the panelists for taking the time to have this session, all the attendees. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Ndege, you put one more comment here. Starting as a STEM educator of children can be very helpful because children can help in educating one faster. Very well said. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join the session. We appreciate it. We hope you've been able to learn, and this was insightful for you. A happy International Women's Day to every woman here, and the men by extension.
Happy International Women's Day to everyone.
Happy International
Women's Day. Embrace technology, use technology, enjoy it. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Abimbola, can you make yourself visible for a minute? Can we do the embrace technology symbol, embrace equality symbol, and then take a picture that we can use? I want to do it.
Can you please enable my video?
The X symbol.
No, it's not Wakanda. It's not Wakanda. It's not Wakanda for life. It's embrace.
Please enable my video.
Who's taking a picture of us?
No, they need to enable my video first. I don't know why I can't do it.
Abimbola, let her embrace, and then
I need to embrace.
It's like this.
Abimbola, any luck? Abimbola, somebody is after.
Somebody doesn't want my face to
Somebody
show.
doesn't want your embrace. Tony is not Wakanda for life.
All right, yeah. So now we're here.
Wakanda for life is embrace. The way somebody described is that do as if you want to carry a baby. Yeah.
Okay, like this.
Okay.
Or like you're hugging yourself.
Okay, like I'm hugging myself.
Okay. I hope somebody took a picture of us.
Yes.
Have you taken it?
Yes.
Okay, yes, we've taken it.
Okay, thank you.
Bye bye. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Have a lovely day. Thank you, everybody.
Happy International Women's Day.
Enjoy your day.
Bye.